Lisa, you ready? Answer my question. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Inland Wetlands Water Course Commission, the March meeting. First, again, is there anybody who wants to say anything? And it's not on the agenda? If not, approval of the minutes, guys. You guys go over them. Any corrections, additions, deletions? If not, I'd like a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Very good. Next is the public hearing on, first is application 22-11, 2211W, Teresa Dinardi. And I have a correspondence here, which says, Dear Jim and Peter, on behalf of the applicant, Teresa Dinardi, I respectfully request a continuance of the above captioned application until the meeting of the Berlin Inland Wetlands Water Course Commission on April 4th, 2023. Continuance will give the engineer additional time to complete his drainage analysis. I understand the hearing cannot be kept open after April 19th. So also I need a motion to continue application 2211W until the April 4th meeting.
I make a motion to continue application 2211-.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Next is application 23-01W, proposal 175 West Main Street LLC to construct a 3-lot residential subdivision on both inland and upland review area on lot 16, block 127, number 235 Weathersfield Road. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Before we continue, I just want to say that last meeting, we had people from the audience speaking and there were stuff said behind the scenes and everything else. I'm not going to accept that. If somebody is speaking, please hold your comments and your questions to that person that's done speaking. And then you can add whatever you want to say, but do not interrupt the person speaking. Let them say their piece and you can continue on after. That's all I'm asking. So up for the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Andy Stavoviak. I'm a professional engineer representing Ella and Matt Konferovich, acting as 175 West Main Street LLC. We're looking at the re-subdivide a lot along 235 on Weathersfield Road. And what I'd like to do is to, after comments and discussions at the last meeting, we reviewed those, we walked a lot, and we have some findings that we'd like to present. We also modified our proposal, and we'll go over that, and then we'll open for questions. So, pictures in there with concern that were brought up at the last meeting. And I have some photographs. I'll discuss those and pass them out for you to look at. Pictures of worth 1,000 words. So the first area of that became a question of the point of discussion was the this is the lot. This is Glacier, formerly Mary Glacier's house. This is Weathersfield Road, north, south. I refer to this area as the factory wetlands lot. Out here, 235 Weathersfield. And on this drawing, we're now showing arborvitae that are planted along the back edges of the property. And I'll address that. The first photograph is standing at the road. You see the picket fence here and looking that way. And it's this area which borders with Mr. Krasinski and Ruka. This is the area. And there's some brown arborvitae that are shown here. I'll pass this along. It's a gently sloping lot. It drains basically this way and that way. So it drains gone that way. And when I get through with this set, I'll pass it on to the commission. Here's another close-up of that area where the arborvitae are dry. And this area was ponded. We saw a video presented by one of the people at the hearing that there was ponding in this area. This picture was taken 2 days afterwards when I went to the lot. There was no ponded water, but I guess you could say maybe some of the brown sediment on the grass meant that there was a ponding. I'm not questioning that there was ponding. And this is another close-up of the area, and you can see that there's a mound. It's hard to see, but there's a mound that these arborvitae sit on, and better maintained green grass on this side, where the ponding was over here. So I'll pass those out.
How high is that berm?
It goes from a few inches to about a foot. It's in this area, it's about 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet, and it's almost flat here. But where the ponding area, it's about this much. So I don't know if I should pass this.
Start over there.
So our takeaway based on that was that the ponding is short-term and it's occasional. That is, I've been going out to that lot in the last 7 months a bunch of times, maybe a dozen times, and I never seen the ponding there. It doesn't happen all the time. That's what I'm saying. I went out there after a few rainstorms, and I know Jack, we share the same comments. So it's not like it's always there, it's always a problem, etc. Once in a while, it happens. The conditions have to be right. This last ponding, my guess is that because we had little snow this winter, the ground froze because we had some cold nights. With the ground frozen, the water couldn't seep into the ground and it was ponding. There's a slight depression here, so that's why. And then I guess it went away. The other takeaway is that the ground is good enough; it'll take that ponding, it'll dry out. Now, why is there ponding here? One of the things we think is that this used to drain that way before this lot was created, before this house was built. This lot was here first. So that berm and that arborvitae here prevent the water from draining. Some of it is natural, it drops off this way, but in this area, you get that ponding. And that's ponding that we saw. The next area that we looked at was to the other side of the lot, not the left side, but the right side of the lot. And this photograph is a picture starting from there's a picket fence, white picket fence along the street line. See there. And there's the arborvitae here are these that are here. So there's some arborvitae here. The other thing I would call your attention to is that there's the tree line here. There's a drainage easement that was a conservation easement that was created when the subdivision took place. It's 35 foot wide, and it goes through the lot we just talked about onto about halfway into this second lot. So there's a conservation easement that continues. The idea, if you saw this closely, there are arrows which the city put a storm drainage system in because Wethersfield Road is a dip, and it's about here. When they were trying to subdivide it, the town took a easement here as opposed to here, and then because of the natural slope. So the intention of that easement was to have the water, and it shows the arrows coming out midway or 1/3 of the way on Mr. Levchick's house, a lot going into the wetland here. So that's the easement that was set up. So as you see, the area along this, it's a tree lined. The wetland that we're talking about is actually this lawn in front of these arborvitae. It's filled in. it's basically a log. You couldn't, if you were there, you wouldn't know it's a wetland. Here's the arborvitae and these trees. This next shot is from standing here, looking that way. There's the red mulch, the arborvitae, and here are the little drains. There are 4 6-inch slotted drains. This particular drain, you'll notice, is like 2 feet off the ground. It has to pond 3 inches or so before the drain starts working. So these stakes are where these little inlets are. So it's not continuous, it's inlets. You'll notice that if you look at our map now.
What do you mean they're inlets? There's more than one drain?
Yes, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4 of them.
Okay.
So it's like, maybe there's 5. I can't remember.
No, I got you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's not a current drain, it's not a thing. And see, there's the arborvitae are on a mound. You can see the break in the shadow as it climbs the thing. So this is the inlets, and this is the woods back there. Another close-up of that berm, standing here, looking that way. So you see the woods to the right in the factory wetland lot, and then you see these large rocks. In this area, the berm is over 2 feet high, like 2.5 feet high. And here's another shot of the berm standing here, looking this way, where you can see the shadow really breaking. Because this is like a 2 or 3 foot mound in this area. And here you can see 2 of those slotted little drains there.
I'm assuming that berm was put in by not the Calasias, but the adjacent homeowner.
Right.
Now, what about that 6-inch PVC pipe?
So according to our
No, I would.
according to our survey, the drain is entirely on the 235 lot, not Mr. Electric's lot. I'm assuming, but I talked to him one time before, he put it in, and this is the second set of arborvitae. He had some in first. They turned brown, they died because it was too wet. So they raised the berm and put them in again. So, so our takeaway on this is that this mound, if this is a wetland here, 1 foot in this way is probably a wetland also. And it's at least the upper review area because the town maps show the wetland going this way. So Mr. Levchik put in a berm arborvitae in a wetland. I don't know if he got permission. As far as I know, he didn't. He also negated the or went against or violated the easement, which he's not supposed to. Fill or what do you call it? No filling, grading, or excavating in the easement, other than to maintain water course. The water course shown in the original drawing shows the water going through. We put a berm in here, and so if there's a wet area here, it's caused by this berm and the actions of this property over here. So the other point is that we talked about is that there was flooding in the basement of this property owner. Just describe the words. This just makes it. This is Mr. Electric's home, cross section 106 brownstone. The elevation at his house is around 91. His basement floor would be around 82. I haven't been in there, but I'm guessing that this is about it. He is 6 feet. The basement is 6 feet below the lowest point in the wetland ditch next to him. So if there's 1 inch of water in his wetland or 2 feet, he's got a wet basement, he's pumping. And if his pump goes down, he doesn't have backup for power failure or like a battery or a generator, his basement will flood. And it has nothing to do with what we're doing here, because he built a basement in or next to a wetland, or next to a wetland review area. So his complaint, I sympathize with him, I have a wet basement too, but it's nothing to do with what we've done or trying to do or whatever. So the next area that I wanted to highlight,
And then before you, that drain exits to the east.
yes,
It discharges
it
it all.
discharges into a ditch which goes, and I've seen a pipe in here, like a concrete pipe, 15-inch concrete pipe in here, and then there's a, I'll show you some pictures. There's a ditch that runs through here, and it becomes more pronounced, and then it takes a right-hand turn halfway into this lawn. So the water basically flows that way within a ditch. So the idea is to get all the water into this ditch. This tends to do it that way, pushes it over.
I have a question about the easement area. You got it marked off there, and it looks like when you get to the top, it takes a drastic right-hand turn.
Yes.
Does it actually do that, or does it go straight into the other property?
It does make that right-hand turn. This is a map of the town topography that's on your website. I don't know, it's kind of tough to read, but here's Glacier House, this is the Lefchik lot, this is the factory wetland lot. If you follow the contours, there's a ditch that goes that way, and then it goes this way. So it maybe halfway, not quite halfway, this turns. So the arborvitae that we're talking about in ditches here, so it seems like there's a pipe this right in here, somebody years ago must have put in. And then, so the idea, Mr. Lefchik, for protecting his property, the water wants to go this way, and that's where the general wetland soils are. But he shot it off into the pond to get it off. So
But where does the easement line go? I want to know where the
easement line is this line here.
Yeah.
And I didn't draw it here.
but does it go into his property?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It goes about this way, this far. And I don't know if you can see it, it goes up to here.
So it's the same width running parallel.
It's
Along
same with
that easement.
running parallel. right
Okay, that's
through.
what I was trying to get. So
The next set of 4 pictures is, I'm standing right here on this catch basin. The catch basin takes water from the Woodgate property and the road drainage, and it goes on this side into a catch basin here, and then it goes into the catch basin on this drawing. This photo is a shot up the street this way. So it's sort of like that, you know. So it shows that the property on this side, on the south side of Wethersfield Road, is a hill. So water from here drains down into this road, in through the drainage. And if you look at it closely, there's another catch basin right there, which is quite a ways. It has a pipe coming from the south side, going down this way, and it brings it here and then shoots it there. So that's why the drainage area feeding this area is large, because drainage on the street actually directs that whole area in through here. So there's a curb line, and the next photo shows the pipe goes in around 15 feet and discharges onto the 235 lot. It ends right here. It's a concrete pipe. And then you can see the stream meanders, the ditch meanders. It goes like that into this property. So that's and these woods are this wooded lot.
How far back east does that stream go? Where does it start on that? Going
It
east?
start here, and then it goes into this lot
I
here.
thought it was further east though.
The lot is, I don't know how much, a couple hundred feet wide. So it meanders, but the You see the drainage. So the drain, here's the pipe that comes across the road. And then it runs into here and then it discharges here. Some of the old town drawings show actually a pipe or a manhole in here, but it was never built. It ends here. So so this area basically is like sheet flow going through here. And this area collects the drainage area that way. It comes through here and there's like a natural channel going. So this picture is starting at there's a picket fence here and looking that way. It basically shows that it's all kinds of trees, leaf litter, branches, it's piled that hasn't been maintained. This is the drainage easement that we're looking at. So of course, if the water happens to be on this side, it can't get through because it hasn't been maintained. Here's another photo of standing here, looking back up at the street. So you can see that little picket fence at the street. And we're looking at this area here where there's fallen willow trees and tree trunks. Basically, this acts as a dam and it doesn't function as a drainage area.
Doesn't that lot on 235 slope into the wooded area?
Yes, it slopes like this way. You see that the drainage, because the topo line is sort of going that way. This part actually slopes directly in where the easement is. And so that basically the three areas that were mentioned, the flooding in the basement, the wet area, and the wet area here, are partially caused by the property owners, the neighbors, by blocking up and putting berms in to protect their property. Is okay, I mean, very well. But it causes the wet area here. Even then, these areas dry out because these soils, I guess, are decent enough for that to happen. So it's not a lake every time you go out there.
So that photo you have that actually shows the stormwater outfall and it creates like a stream.
Yes.
Is that on the 235 property or is
It
it,
starts off at the 235 property here, and then it goes into.
and it doesn't come back? It
It doesn't
stays.
come back, it stays on that.
So can you tell me where that stream is?
Yeah,
That's exactly it. So it's like in here.
where's, it says pipe to the cat. I don't see a pipe there, but how far is that? Jimmy, you know how far that pipe goes in from the road?
It's 15 feet.
Yeah. say
Okay.
20, 25.
It just,
Essentially just goes in beyond the street line.
it goes right just past the lot line. So it's like, here's the pavement, here's the catch basin, and then this is 20 scale, so actually almost 15, 20 feet.
So that is right at the end of basically right at the,
And then it kind of goes to
yeah,
the
yeah,
east.
yeah. But it must end right, it ends right here. And he said it's 15 feet from the street line. So it's only going in a couple feet.
No, but I want to know how far it is from the property line east. From the 235 property line.
This is 400 feet. So this is 35 foot here, so it's maybe around 20 feet for the property.
You're saying it goes in 20 feet, then it goes to the
And
other,
it parallels the property line, 20 feet.
and then but then it goes into the
Then it goes much deeper ditch by Mr. Lepchik's house and then makes the right turn.
So I thought that this little stream is closer to the middle of that wooded area.
No, because the discharge point is not in the wooded area. It's on this lot.
That's what he wants. He wants to know how far that pipe goes in before it goes into the wooded lot.
It goes in 15 feet off the paved edge of the road,
Okay.
15 feet, and then it goes 40 feet this way. So it's 20 feet here and 20 feet there.
So you're saying that
So it
both,
goes into the easement, but then it goes east off the
It
property.
goes past the easement
It goes
into the other
halfway.
property.
When I go by there, this stream is further to east than what he's telling me right now.
no, this picture here, let me see, this picture here. Where is this in relation to that map?
It's there,
So you're saying this water we're seeing is on,
is on the factory wooded wetland lot.
But I don't think it's that close to the property line.
Contour show. I can sometimes with the aerial photos.
This is fairly
Not
flat,
exact.
so water has run down this lawn here. And Mr. Lefchick got a nice picture of water going here, ponding. So it, because of this easement isn't maintained, if this is blocked or if this water coming here, then it'll just
Because that easement is not raised, it's flat. It's,
well, it's you know, so those trees and stuff.
yeah,
That's the easement.
yeah. It kind of looks like it's,
That's what when the bushes are up, it's hard for the water to make it.
So it was never really defined, because, they established the easement on paper, but they never continued with the actual work
yeah,
to create a channel down through the easement itself from what it appears.
now, is that easement gonna be, is that gonna be cleared by,
Right, so Jack was gonna address that. The actions that we're proposing, a little modifications of what we proposed today to address some of these issues.
Good evening, my name is Jack Martin. Check with your John Martin for AL survey. For the 212 Brickyard Drive. The following Friday after our last meeting, we went and met with staff, pass those out, and we made some changes to our modifications from the suggestion, working with staff. And basically, what suggested and what we've done is what's happening here, as Andy has talked about. You've got the road coming down towards this property here and coming down the hill over here, and working with a very small intersection, not the same size, 12 inch pipe over here. The pipe sizes are probably not adequate. But that's where the drainage is coming into. We've got a very large parcel of land over here that's all lawn. It's all washing down into a gully over on this side and coming down. So so where does this water go when it can't maintain and it comes down the street of this hill as such? It goes into this lot. And I did make a mistake last time. I did say that there was curbing all the way across. There isn't. And it ends, it ends over here. For the driveway, and then it picks up again over here. So this area over here is without curb. So what we suggested doing is extending this French drain all the way across to pick up water, pick up this water that's coming off the road into these lots. Then also what we added was we changed the grade. This driveway, when it comes into the parcel, dips down. It goes down into the yard. And one of the things on a new driveway design is that the driveway grade at street line has to be 0.8 of a foot above the gutter grade. In that case, this didn't happen. So what we're proposing is a change in grade of the driveway. It's actually raising the driveway up about a foot, and that will again kick the water back out into the road. Another thing we did was we put in yard drains on the parcel to pick up the driveway. You had mentioned driveway water is the only thing that wasn't cared for. Again, going back, we're not having footing drains because we're putting houses at slabs here, so there won't be footing drains. So we'll be just doing the roof drains. We have the Calco chambers already in on the site, and by putting the drain these yard drains in, we've actually increased those, double the size, the amount in both locations, and again, putting a yard drain in and picking up driveway water coming off there. And then back here where there's a 6-inch PVC pipe, we're going to take that out and put an 8-inch pipe in. And then again, I've got other people that know a little bit more about this, but French drain versus what the thing with that is you dig out, you put your pipe in, you put it in a stone base, and then you fill it all the way up to the surface with stone. So it will continue to work as a drainage ditch in a sense, versus a curtain drain as you bury it. You put your pipe in, bury that. So this will again be a kind of an open ditch going out back into the body of right through the conservation easement. So we added that, and then the other thing we did was we added a note over here that basically says the applicant must meet with the town staff to remove all material that is restricting the natural flow of water and to be re-inspected by staff prior to receiving any building permits. So basically over here, the question came up a few times about is this cleaned out? Is it working properly? And the answer is probably no, because it's like Jim says, it was never really designed. Backing up a little bit more, before this, the original subdivision, there was a drainage easement through this property. I think it was 15 foot. And that was abandoned when this subdivision was done to change to the conservation easement. So Mike, there was a drainage easement there, but showing going all the way back through these properties, but that was abandoned for this conservation easement. And like it says, the conservation easement says you really can't cut, clean, or do anything other than maintain the flow. So again, working with staff, they suggested that we direct this to get this cleaned out. They will walk the property, figure out what has to come out of it. Once it's done, we go back to you guys and say it's done. The staff will come back out, re-inspect it, and no building permits for these 2 new houses will be given until this is built to the satisfaction of the town. The other thing that we did mention about is that we are putting this area here that it's flagged as wetlands. We are putting plants in there, which will also help absorb some water versus a lawn. You have some plants grabbing some of the water too. When we also looked at this area over here, which was brought up by the gentleman back here that said there was a pond, we looked at, do we want to fill that, so get rid of the pond? And the answer in the long term was no, because it's acting as a detention, if you will. It had water in it. When we all went, he showed a photo when we went back there, it was gone. So it did hold water back because, like Andy talked about, the restrictions along the property line, but it does ease off the property. So by filling it in, we would be causing more harm to neighbors in the back by having it just run off.
Wasn't that an elevation where that garage is in the back higher than that?
This garage?
Yeah.
That's way up on it, kind of up on the hill.
Yeah, so really the water can't flow to the
No,
right.
it's basically like it's like a crown,
Correct.
the lot. This in here is the highest part, and then slopes off this way and slopes off that way. So this was filling up. He had a picture said I think he said 7 inches of water. If we fill that in, that would just rush it further into his yard. So we said, no, let's keep it there. The water, if it does come over here, it'll sit, but it's working its way out. It's going. And so
what plantings will be put on the eastern side?
I got winterberry and maple trees. There's we use those on some other sites. They're wetland plants. Wetlands is a funny thing. I go down Route 9 to go towards the shoreline, and there's a few areas there where a beaver put a dam in. And you can tell where they put their dams in because everything in it is dead. Because there's plants that grow in the wetlands and there's plants that don't grow in the wetlands. And once a beaver puts in a beaver dam and it floods an area, it can kill everything that's in it. Next time you guys take a ride down to Route 11, down to the shoreline, you'll see it. But these plants, maybe part of the problem, I don't know about everybody, maybe just are not conducive to be growing in a wetland. So building them up on a berm was a good idea for this homeowner to get them to grow. But we're putting in plants that are theoretically wetland approved plants in there. Let me see, we got the French drain and the yard drains. Getting the pipe in the back, putting a note in there. And then we did some drafting changes. There was a text error on the lot frontage over here. A few other little cleanup things that just we did make some corrections on it. But overall, what we're looking at is it seems to be the biggest problem is stormwater. Stormwater coming into this lot, and how is it being restricted from how can we keep it in control of coming into this lot? And I think what we've done by putting in another of the French drain across, putting yard drains in, putting more calcium chambers in on the lot to pick up the water, I think is going to solve that problem.
So everything in that French drain across the front of the property flows east?
Yes.
And it all discharges? Yeah.
So,
And to the extent you're bringing material soil onto the property, you're raising up some of the where the building lots are,
Yeah.
right? What's the extent, I guess, north of any fill you're doing?
well, this is a proposed grade here change here. This elevation 96. We're pulling that back actually. This right about here is it's the 40-foot, and then building square is 75. So it's about 80 feet, 90 feet back is the limit of fill here. And over here, it's just right off the back of the house. And again, you mentioned about if this were to go to a decision that we would again agree to restricting where the location of these houses. You had a concern about that.
Yeah.
And do you know why they're putting those houses on flat versus?
Why they're doing that?
Yes.
I think it's choice, cost, building ranches. Helen's here, maybe you can address that later. But, in a sense here, again, like I mentioned about the basements and all that, the grade in the water, the groundwater, whatever. Personally, think it's a good idea to put this on.
Well, the existing house keeps pumping water even in the summer from the basement.
Yeah, it's funny, we were talking on the hallway there, and I saw the pipe. Part of my job to do is when we're doing a survey, is we have to know where the sewer water and the sewer line is in the house and the water, where they enter into the basement. So I went down the basement. The basement was dry when I went in there. I didn't see any standing water. It was basically an abandoned property at that point. I was able to just walk in the back door. There was a door open and went down the basement. So if it was pumping, it's doing its job, and it's not basement that didn't have anything. And again, I'm not denying that there's properties, they've said that they've seen ponding on it. We did the topo, you actually stopped and talked to them one day when we were toping it. It was a lot. It was dry, so I missed it. And then I guess the last thing was this property over here. I know they told Andy that they had gone to wetlands and got permission to do some filling, and I don't know that when they want to speak or if that was able to help them out in their situation with that lot. But it's like the last kid on the street and everything dumped in here. And so what we're looking to do is try to keep this off the the water off the lot and get it to the all to drain over to the wetland area over here. And then again, Mike, when I've observed this pipe, I've seen the water just almost quickly turning and going that way.
Turning right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, goes up.
I have a couple of numbers. The calculating the area, which is the crown, the Weathersfield Road has a crown. So the south side goes into the drainage this way, but this side and drainage from the, almost from the intersection comes down to this lot and then turns into this lot. So by putting in this curtain drain, the curtain drain, I had just put up a little sketch for it. Basically, the curtain, I use curtain drain, French drain interchangeably as opposed to jacket. So don't, you might be saying French, but anyways, so one of them is covered where you can walk over it, one like grass, and one of them, so it's basically to cut off the water coming from the hillside upside, and basically instead of opening here, put in stone or drainable material. We also are planning to wrap it with filter fabric because fines from this area tend to migrate and plug that thing. But if you put filter fabric around, it acts like a big pipe. We're putting a pipe at the bottom for the water to flow easier through. And what happens is that the water table, which is shown in these dot lines, will drop because it even downstream will drain into here. So this curtain drain cuts off the water here, but it also takes off a wide, it dries up a wide area along the front. So this part of the lot will cut the amount of water hitting the Krasinski and the Rilka lot by 30%. So 30% of what would normally go through there will be caught by this drain and carried this way. Same thing with the electric house. There is some drainage and curbing here which protects him somewhat, but we're gonna, from the paved area to the other side of that curtain drain, we're gonna be draining that as with the overflows from the underground chambers. We're gonna be picking that up and going into the town designated easement here. So the overland flow will be reduced to Mr. Electric's house by around 10%, additionally to what it is because of this drain.
Can you elaborate a tad more in regards to the curbing that's out there, the extent of where it is?
Curbing stops, I think.
On the driveway. Going.
The curbing, and this is a little clearer, curbing ends here and picks up basically at property line over on this side. And what Andy was talking, there's quite a drop off. You know, when I was looking for property clearance over here, there's a couple foot difference between this yard over here and just walking over this area.
Now, the gutter grade in that area, if that missing length of curbing was installed, is there sufficient grade in the gutter to drain it to the east?
Yeah. Well,
which would help cut off some of the surface runoff?
The problem is that this middle of the lot, there's like a ridge, a rock ridge. So I don't know for sure if that part actually makes it through. At some point, it would tend to want to go this way, but it's being caught now by the proposed curtain drain. So I think the curtain drain, and it doesn't cause any more buildup near the road, you know, so that it just catches it directly and it dries out this front area. And then we can tie in the roof chambers and parts of the driveway, et cetera, into that drain. So it basically eliminates more than just the overland flow from it.
Question, Jim. If you put sidewalks on there, would it catch a lot of that water that tends to flow in?
In terms of sidewalks, yes, because a sidewalk would be installed above the gutter grade, but that's not something that was the purview of this commission.
No.
Eventually, planning and zoning would rule in terms of whether a sidewalk extension is required.
But you were asking a regular kind of between the curb,
Yeah.
would that help anymore? It seems like it would, but
If the gutter grade, it may be flat there, it's just the gutter doesn't
It
drain.
Um,
I mean, it doesn't drain
It's pretty
to
flat.
the east.
Yeah.
It just, that's why you have the sheet
That's
flow.
why, that's why I was thinking.
From what I've seen. What I've seen is that this property owner protected his lot. He's up a little higher. And he's got the curb here and the street, and then the water just turns into down here. So our thought was to put in the curtain drain. However,
But you're saying a current drain will do the same as a curb or maybe more?
right, see, like the sidewalk, you're adding in impervious area.
Right.
So
Well,
it's
like Jim said, they're not gonna, right now, we can't even talk about putting in a
Right.
Yeah,
sidewalk.
but if they put a curb in there.
Well, would a curb do any more than would it help any?
See, the curb on this side,
You may end up
there's a-
ponding in the gutter.
Right.
on this side, there's a curb. I'm sure there's storms where that curb is overtopped, you know.
well. Trying to look at them. Bear with me there.
And the only other curb is at the property line. Yeah, that's where it's flat right there.
So I think with, again, listening to the concerns about the stormwater coming in, I think what we're doing is by extending it, we're picking it up. If you were to, in planning zone, which I can't tell you this, but if I were in planning zone, I can tell you that a sidewalk is typically 6 inches above the crown,
Right.
3 inches above the crown line. So you've got your curb crown line is the same at grade, and the sidewalk's 3 inches above that. So it theoretically does, but that's the next.
Yeah.
Right. And then when we, when we put in the sewer line and the water line here, again, that could be, we could also work, put a kind of a hump in the grade, but also control that.
Jim, you know where the easement is over there, conservation easement?
Over on this property?
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
How much debris is over there? I mean, is it a foot? Is it 18 inches? I know there's a lot of old trees that.
There's a lot of stuff down
there, right,
on the ground,
right.
and that's why, like you say, it comes off here, and the grade isn't. I don't think we have the right to rechannel. I don't think we can do that, but I think by cleaning this out, I know I spoke to the fellow's husband at one time, and he was excited about getting in there and cleaning that out. Like to take the stuff out of there. So now, the note says you can to maintain it, and we're putting a note. By the way, this is on the site plan, but it's also on the subdivision plan, so that it will be double checked that it goes into every lot. Again, nobody gets a building permit until this area here is cleaned up and to the satisfaction.
I found a picture of this area before the driveway. If you want to look at it, I don't know if that helps you.
Okay, yeah.
So the thing is, if the 3 houses go in, you're gonna have 3 driveways. Put a curb in, you're gonna direct the water onto the driveway.
Onto the driveway, yeah.
And then there's 3 problems that you have. So the idea was, yes, it might help, it might end up doing that anyways, but for now, I think we could,
The curtain drain is gonna intercept.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of, again, it's up to you guys talking, whether you decide that that's an issue that you want to see, something like that. work with the. All right, that's my dog and pony show.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for these two guys?
So your contention is you're making it better than it is.
Yeah, and what we're doing. Putting this 8-inch drain in here, again, it's subside. You know, when you got an 8-inch drain, then you gotta have 2 or 3 inches of stone, so it's gonna be a good trench. That's gonna tremendously bring a lot of the water over here. This pipe, this swale over in this yard over here is very clean, very well maintained, so the water gets down here as it needs to. And then, and it goes out, and the pipe is clean, the basins are clean. So the system you have there is working as best it can, but I personally don't think it's the right size storm drain system.
Yeah, I want to, you said an 8-inch drain on your plans is 4-inch.
What is it? Oh, no, it's supposed to be 8-inch. So
Well, the one in back is 8-inch.
8-inch. But, you know, I'll make
Yeah.
this stuff.
Question for you on that easement, where it says easement owner prohibited from filling, grading, excavating, and tree removal, except as necessary to maintain water course.
Right, so it's essentially clearing any deadfalls, some tree that may have fallen over. The typical grade is running perpendicular into it, let's say a large fallen tree. You want to clear that out so the water can just.
About leaves and stuff that's over there. I mean, I'm just trying to
in
think of,
general, you know, the intent is not to create a wooded picnic area.
right, no, I get
But
it, but
it's
that's
clearing the deadfalls so that the surface water can run its course in accordance with the contours.
I can say this, that I've been in the survey field since 1968. So I've dug a lot of holes in the winter and the summer and everything, but you take a new construction site where there's dirt, that's gonna freeze first. And you get a marginal lawn that will freeze next. A good green, well-maintained lawn that will take a little bit longer to freeze the ground. I go in the woods and I survey, there's no frost. I can, through most every winter, I can go and dig because of the leaves and everything else, that it just keeps the ground open and lets everything flow through there. So, you know, going in there with York ring, or just really cleaning out isn't necessarily a positive thing. But getting the big debris, the
Yeah, you see a lot of big stuff laying on it. I'm sure it would help. Anybody else on the commission? Now, anybody from the audience have a comment, question, please state your name and your address, and let's keep it civil, please.
My name is Lori Budney, and I'm 242 Weathersfield. I have here with me representing concerned neighbors of 230. We have the presentation here.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Trinkus. I'm a licensed professional engineer from Southbury, Connecticut. I've been in the land development field since the mid 1970s when I started in surveying before graduating from college with a degree in forestry. Then I became licensed based on experience. So there's one copy of my CV for your record. 7 copies of my letter. And before I get into the letter, I just want to address a couple of the comments that I heard tonight. If the drainage easement was formerly on these plans, being abandoned by the town of Berlin in lieu of a conservation easement, unless a conservation easement calls out and maintains the right to drain, the town of Berlin no longer has the right to discharge water on the site. So the language of the conservation easement is critical whether that discharge from the catch basin can actually remain there. Because it now became a conservation easement to remain in its natural state. Without the right of the drainage, you don't have the right for drainage. Point number 1. Regarding the drain back here that they're looking to replace, you know, if you're putting in a drain with crushed stone and you've got a wetlands up gradient of it, you're likely going to draw water out of that wetland to the drain. And then you're going to lower the hydro period within the wetland itself. Now, I'm not a soil scientist. However, I've worked in land development for 40 plus years, and I've worked with Mr. Logan, who's a soil scientist here. I've worked with many other soil scientists in the state. So you generally don't put a drain that's permeable downgrading the wetland, de-water the wetland itself. Some of the issues that I reviewed on the other plan was in the minutes of the January meeting, it stated that the homes are going to be on slab. But on the prior plans and on these plans, it calls out a basement elevation. What's correct? Because the basement elevation of the two new houses are anywhere between 8 and 11 feet below grade. So if they're going to be slabs, the plans are wrong. If the testimony being on slabs is incorrect, then you're going to have basements, but now you have no provision for getting the water out from footing drains, which have to be done for that. Having a hump on the edge of the driveway between the road just going up and back down will keep the road runoff on the road. However, the rest of the driveway pitches right to the garage door. So how you're going to direct water right into your garage, which is not a desirable situation if you're a homeowner at all. Based on the natural resource conservation mapping of what used to be the old soil science surveys, this site has both Ludlow and Wilbraham silt loams that, according to the soil descriptions, can have a groundwater table anywhere from the surface to 30 inches below grade. Basically, it's a hard pan soil because you're having a perched groundwater table. When you put curtain drains down into hard pan soils, when we do them for septic systems, you go down 6 inches or a foot below the hard pan layer to just intercept the seasonal groundwater. They are not going to draw water in from either side. They're going to intercept the water that comes in on that perched layer. Only in sand and gravel soil with a deep curved drain will actually draw water down from either side of it, as far as that goes. The original plans I reviewed had three units of the, they call them Storm Tech on the plan, but the detail had something else. There's two different things. Caltech, they claimed they were, there was a unit, the units were manufactured by ADS, but according to ADS website, they don't have a unit called out for what the applicant had on the plans. Caltech, which is out of Brookfield, Connecticut, does have, is called the 330 XL. That's 30 inches in height. So you have one detail that shows one thing, you have something on the plan that's totally different. Which unit is being used, it makes a big difference. A Caltech 280 unit is 26 inches in height. But one of the things we don't have is we don't have any elevations on these Caltech systems. You also have no overflow provisions for them. You have no test pit data for the Caltech systems that you're putting in potentially groundwater. And if they're in groundwater, they can't accept new water because they're going to be full for some period of time. They also do not have any overflow provision if they are full. So if that happens and you're discharging your roof runoff into them, what happens is the water backs up your gutter drain pipe. And I had this happen on a project where a client actually manipulated the stormwater system and created the problem. The water actually backed up the gutter pipe and froze going up the side of the house because he blocked off the overflow provision from the stormwater system. The French drain that now has been expanded on the original plans, it just was this kind of U-shaped one. But again, there was no invert elevations on this. We have no detail on it. So how deep is it going to be? How wide is it? How are you going to construct it? There is pitch coming from here, to here, but we have no information on it. There's also a swale shown in front of this lot on the left, but again, there's no detail of it. Even if it's a graded drain swale, you should have some generic details so the contractor knows how to build it as far as that goes. Without having an overflow provision, there's an assumption that can be made the applicant believes water is going to infiltrate through these Caltech systems. Well, without test pits and without infiltration tests, you can't make that statement. You can't assume that infiltration will occur. There's also no calculations of the change in runoff. And while this drain might prevent the water from the road coming out of these houses or onto the adjacent properties too, you've got new driveways, you have new houses, and you have no evidence of how much water is going to be created by both of those. And that's a big concern. You can't just put Caltex on a plant. You've got to size them to handle whatever the design form that the town of Berlin may use, or as a default what the Connecticut DEP 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual uses. From the erosion standpoint, there are stockpiles that have to be required on the plans, and I'll provide the applicant with a copy of my letter when I'm done. So he doesn't have to take notes. But you have to have stockpiles on the plans. We don't have those. We also have silt fences running perpendicular contours. You don't run silt fence perpendicular contours because what happens, water runs right along the silt fence and will erode anything right along it. They go parallel to contours with maybe an upturned end at all. The bottom line for a small subdivision, the downgradient neighbors are going to see more water because the stormwater management system is not going to work as represented. There's no evidence to support it was going to work. This is going to drop more water onto all of these properties. I also believe by improving this drain here, you're going to actually harm the wetland by perhaps drawing water out over time. You know, while red maples, which the applicant is proposing, are, you know, appropriate in wetlands, to kind of address the comment with beaver dams is, you know, red maples, as any tree, the roots want to be in an aerobic area. They want to be close to groundwater, but they do not want to be in groundwater. And planting red maples in a wetland, you really need to know what is your depth of groundwater, because if it's, you know, only a foot down and your root ball is 2 foot down, those red maples will die simply because their feet are constantly wet. They don't want to be constantly wet. They want to be mostly dry but close to groundwater. But the bottom line is that, you know, there's a lot of incorrect information on the plans, but primarily the stormwater management system is not going to work and is going to result with increased flows going onto the net down gradient property owner. Without a doubt, I have done land development for, you know, 40 years. You'll see in my CV, you know, I'm an expert in low impact development, which is a focus on runoff volume and water quality. And this plan as proposed is not going to address the runoff volume. There's no evidence to support that the design will function, you know, as the applicant intends. Thank you.
But according to the town drawing, for that, it's just a few feet. It shows it, this is just a copy from the town, and it shows that it does stop, and he said it keeps going onto his property, and that he violated certain regulations by putting a berm, but it shows it right there. I didn't doctor these up. These are just, you know, it says it right there. And
And that's from our GIS mapping,
yes,
which is not as accurate as a subdivision plan.
okay, all right. I just
For the
heard this
record,
town.
for the record.
Anybody else from the,
Yes, David Lusick, 106 Brownsville Road, lot 16-5. I just had a couple of questions. The first one was, if the house is built here, how are these people going to use their backyard and that wetlands property? That area is wet for 6 to 9 months of the year. You step into the ground, it's soaking wet. You sink in the mud. You know, how can somebody sell a house having somebody with a yard like that? I know I'd be very upset. That was my number one concern. Number two, the house drains, how are we addressing? We're going to put in chambers, an existing house, 235 Wilshire Road. That's going to solve the sump pump draining into the wetlands. I don't know if I make an answer. Oh, okay. No, if you can answer the question, that'd be great.
The question is,
235 Wilshire Road, it dumps water into the wetlands for 6 to 9 months of the year.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we don't do that for the presentation.
Okay.
And then we'll-
yeah,
Okay, yep. So those are 2 questions I had. Number 3, if this doesn't work, what are the neighbors going to do? Do we come back to the town? Do we go after the owners? How is that handled? I guess I had 3 questions. That's, somebody can answer, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Chris Kwasinski, 98 Brownstone Road. So obviously we have very contradictory statements, right, between very highly skilled individuals in their field. So my question lies is hypothetically moving forward, in the event that these houses do get built, and in the event that the proposed construction will involve what this gentleman's plans are and everything else, and then we do have increased flooding, we do have increased runoff that goes onto our properties, that does all this stuff, then what kind of recourse do we take at that point? So, you know, if we were to get together and even file a lawsuit, do we go after that? Do we go after the new homeowners? Do we go after the engineers? Do we go after the person that purchased the property? I mean, this is, you know, this is legitimate stuff, because if this does make matters worse, and this does make matters far greater for us, that it's going to involve flooding, not only on our property, but potentially into our homes, as happened to Mr. Lusik's home a few weeks ago. Obviously, you mentioned it. You know, that kind of raises some serious concern, because you know, we have, again, this gentleman's plans that are very much on the complete opposite of this gentleman's plans. In my opinion, obviously provided a far more detailed presentation, but that's besides the point. So that's my question. What happens then?
We can't answer that. We don't.
That's the problem. I understand you can't answer that. That's
We're relying on the engineers to give us the right data to, you know, proceed. We're gonna have to look at this. We're gonna come back. We're gonna ask these 2 gentlemen, you know, to comment on this.
if I could just add one more thing to it. So Jack keeps mentioning that every time he went, that the property was bone dry. We have not had rain in over a week. And I'd actually encourage you to go tomorrow morning, because there's still water standing in the pond. We haven't had rain in a week. Okay, so, I mean, you went in the driest time of the year, which was one time. You mentioned it was in August, where our lawns are essentially the color of the manila envelopes on the table. So obviously you're not gonna have anything like that. But we haven't had rain in over a week, and there's a standing pond. So that's just, go tomorrow, go take a look yourself. I don't have to tell you. I mean, I showed you the pictures last time. But I just feel that if you go one time when you're looking to do a project like this, one time in the course of over 6, 7, 8 months, that's not doing your due diligence as we need to.
All built the whole time, 22 Cobblestone Road. Just to back that up, I look out at this property every day from my kitchen window. Here. This one we have out there, this picture was taken 2 days ago. Like Chris said, it happens quite often. It's not a rarity.
Now, where was that in relation to the plan? Show me.
Sure. It's right here. Here's like that. You can see the big tree they cut down that was like ready to go right here somewhere. You can see that big tree cut up there. And the garage
Some of the
is right there.
arborvitae's are on the board with that.
Yeah, the arborvitae's would be to the left right here. You can see the arborvitae's.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I understand that you know, this is a wetlands commission, and primarily the wetlands area that we are in questions regarding the east side of the home that, you know, is closer to Mr. Lusik's property. But I think to just negate or not address a legitimate 7¼ inch pond that's standing on property would not be in the best interest of anybody, from the engineers to builders, to owners, to everybody involved.
Anybody else?
I'd like to summarize some of the benefits of our proposal and hopefully address some of the questions that are being raised. Good. Okay, so I wanted to step back a little because some people have not been here for the other presentations. So that the owner of 235 has a choice. He either fixes his septic system and well, which would mean putting in a large leaching field right across the front of the lot, which would be here. This is the existing field. This would be putting a leaching field this way. Because of soil conditions, you would have to be maximum with gravity, 150 feet. Because the hard pan soil is down 2 feet, the top carries the water. I don't know exactly where the water table is, but there's also rock in here. So we're bringing in 2 or 3 feet of fill right across here. So that fill is much more than any fill that we're talking about in these new homes. The health department will mandate that we do this, otherwise they're taking that home. And the town is buying it, you're paying for it. So either that goes through, and what happens? 300 to 600 gallons, this is a 3-bedroom, 2 people per bedroom, that's 650 gallons on the well, 300 gallons. You could get up to, or if they go right, normally 75 or 100, you're talking 600 gallons going into left slot, partially treated sewage. That's 250,000 gallons, up to 250,000 gallons coming to your lot through here, partially treated. What doesn't get treated in the septic system? All the salts aren't removed. The nitrogen is only up to 50% removed. So you're getting nice fertilizer going into the wetland, which we all care about, and into the slot. In our proposal, we're taking that water and we're pumping out to the sewer system, which goes to Bassett and Connecticut River. So just that, we're dewatering the site doing that. This curtain drain that's in front, I think I have a earlier version of it, but it's good enough to talk about, will cut down water reaching Mr. Chris's house by 30%. So it's 5 times the area of this roof that we're taking out. So it's like saying there's going to be more water coming out because we're putting 2 houses in. It's like I'm standing on a parking lot, slightly sloping. Rain is running, everything is running. I go out there in the middle of the parking lot. I put an umbrella up, and the guy down there over there says, "I'm getting more water." You're getting the same amount of water. So this curtain drain will remove a lot of water going to these homes. And the question was that, of course, we don't have these aren't final plans. We don't have exact locations, which we can, with staff, without staff, work it out. So yes, are the plans perfect? No, there's probably some hitches. Now the overflow on the Caltech bases are shown on at least one of them shown that goes into this curtain drain. So the Caltex will work. So the Caltex, what will they do? In the dry season, when the soil is taking water, rain on the roof will go into that curtain, that Caltech drain, or whatever. There might be 2 different names called that. That's true, whatever. But it's a underground detention pond, and it'll soak into the ground. The other extreme is everything's wet. It's like a parking lot. Goes on the roof, doesn't matter if it goes into the drain or not. It's going into that curtain drain and cutting off. So the overall effect is that the chambers will work when they can, and the curtain drain will cut off more water than, so we're not adding any more water to those. There's no way we're adding more water, we're reducing it. And we're shooting it off into the drainage easement that the town established for this particular lot. And thanks to the subdivision, you guys have lots there. And if this subdivision didn't go through, you wouldn't be able to put your house up. Mr. Lucy's house is 3 times the roof size of this guy, that the Felicia house. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the amount of water will be reduced. Some of the additional points that I took some notes on is that, okay, the curtain drain elevation. I checked the elevations. All the curtain drain needs to do is to, if the soils have a hard pan. We don't have to test it. Field will determine. It's not final engineering. It's about 2 feet to hard pan. So if you put that pipe in the hard pan, it'll cut off all that water in that soft spot, which runs. We know it drains because we went out after you filled the 9-inch or 7-inch ponds, 7 1/4. I went there a couple of days later, it was gone. Where did it go? I don't know. The soil took it. So the basement elevations, okay, hard pan soils. Okay, we'll not do it. Now, this curtain drain, say it's 3 feet downward, 4 feet, 3 feet, 3 feet that will work throughout. If the water, it doesn't have, it'll build up in here and it'll form a gradient inside the curtain drain. So outside the pipe, so if it's too flat, the water will build up here until it flows all the way through. So it acts as a natural way of regulating how much water is going through. So that curtain drain could be laid flat and the water will still drain because at the top it'll build up and on the bottom it flows. So the sump pump discharge, well, all these, the sump pump discharge doesn't discharge any additional water. It's just groundwater or water that's fell on the lot, which is heading that to the wetland anyways. So the sump pump, it just discharges it in a concentrated spot, yes. Now, I've been on that lot and I've heard that you can't mow this lot because it gets wet or it's squishy, you can't walk on it. The only time that there was some squishiness was, there was about 1 inch or 2 squishiness. The ground was frozen. I walked through here right after this last rain. I've walked that lot has been mowed since July. I've never seen it happen, but it couldn't be low. There's no tracks where the lawnmower sank into the ground. It just went through. So I'm not saying that it doesn't get wet. It can get wet, but from my experience, the occasional wetness and the wetness on this lot, it's not on this guy's lot. It's not on this guy's lot. It's not on this guy's lot. It's on this guy's lot. He has a problem. Why do you have a problem with a pond on your neighbor's lot?
So, okay, if I could kindly address it.
So, okay, so somebody mentioned suits. I'm going, if anybody has a problem, is this homeowner, now, I don't know, we're not here to discuss if this homeowner wants to look at this and say, look, you're blocking the drainage off my lot. I'm going to do something about it. I don't know if he's going to do that to here. I don't know if this property owner, the purpose of this meeting is not to discuss if this property owner here will have a problem with this neighbor appropriating 3 feet of a lot on over here. We're not here to discuss if Mr. Lusek's house is too low because he built it below the wetland elevation. This drain here, there's enough of a drop in here that the surface ditch or whatever that's there now will drain. It won't drain the other way. The overall drainage is this way. So for this to drain any other wetland the other way, that doesn't make sense. So I don't know if that addresses a lot of the questions.
Again, I apologize, my mistake. Last meeting we had, it was decided that we're going slab on grade, and I apologize for not taking the basement grades out. We discussed it last meeting. Again, that's a drafting error on my part. The other issue is about the having a Caltex in the ground. It was also discussed last time, and the gentleman over this property here was concerned about our filling. Well, I stated that part of the reason we're filling or building these lots up is to be able to get the Caltex into the ground, or get or not necessarily that brand name, but I just use it as description, to be able to get them into the ground. We are proposing a drainage system around this house to pick up the roof drains on that house. That was question was asked about that. And then as far as the actual calculation for each house, normally in my past history with the commission and such, is you don't do necessarily a calculation for you do the calculation on the plot plan for the design of that will adequately serve that individual house. As we said last time, we show these as pictorial only, but the location, yes, but the design of this house could change so that the roof area could change, and then the chambers system will change also. The other thing that wasn't mentioned at all, but the existing leaching fields in the, would have to be removed. That was a drafting thing that put in there to remove those. I believe it said the health department has to be a certified licensed contractor. And we do have flow lines and grades on the pipe. This the extension over here doesn't have a grade, but you gentlemen know that this area up here is humped. Where we're proposing this drain, it's not. We're not down in the flood down in the. We're not down in the lower part of the lot. This is going to be on the upper part as it comes off the road, and that's substantially higher than the yards. And then again, we'll be doing some grading in here. That's pretty it. Oh, I do have one other question, because I didn't the owner over here that mentioned the 7 1/4 inch pond. I'm glad he was here. I didn't see you here earlier. So my question to you is, yeah, all right. My question to you is, I don't deny that. And this past summer, when we had some pretty good rainstorms, I've probably been by this thing in the rain 6, 7 times this past year, because after Andy got the picture for the neighbor showing water over in this area here, that was my concern, but I honestly speaking, just didn't see it. So my question to you would be, is that if there was a pond there, it dissipates and it goes, and it's where? Pardon me? Where? No, I'm asking you where you live. All the answers. So I'm asking you, if you're saying there's a pond there, it doesn't get trucked away, so it goes out, but it's not flooding your yard when it does it. So apparently the system, the ponding of the water, stormwater activity is working. It's ponding holding there, but it's not going off and drifting into your life as a water basin. So again, my answer would be, if he wants to address that, is how long does it take and then it's gone? We went the next day and he's gone. That's it.
Okay.
Steve Prentice, again, a couple comments. Having done this for a long time, yes, the existing septic doesn't appear to meet code. It's a little square on the lot. As the engineer said, now they have to be spread out. However, the health district, if the septic cannot be placed on this lot, is not going to force the homeowner to vacate. They're not going to force the house to be torn down. They're going to force the homeowner to tie into the sanitary sewer, which is right up the road, which is what the applicant is proposing for this project. So what I consider a straw argument that, well, if we don't approve this subdivision, this is what's going to happen here, is quite honestly a very incorrect argument. Secondly, a 3-bedroom house under the health code is 150 gallons designed per bedroom, 450 gallons per day. The reality, if you actually, that assumes 2 people in a 3-bedroom house. So 3-bedroom houses have 6 people. Most houses have 3 bedrooms, probably have husband, wife, 1, maybe 2 kids. There's not 6 people in the house. The actual water flows are probably around 150 to 225 gallons per day, way less than design flow. The code has not changed because on-site systems have no, effective backup. There isn't a sanitary sewer to go to. So the state health department and the design flows have kept the 175 gallons per day per person, 2 people per bedroom, to make sure the systems are conservatively sized to handle that flow. The reality is the flows from single family houses are way less than what the design flows are. If they're raising the grades and going to put these Coltex up and fill, it begs another question, because if you're going to claim that the water is going to dissipate in the soil, the quality of the type of that fill is critical. But you also have to have a separation of groundwater. We have no idea where the groundwater is on this site. And you have to do infiltration tests, not percolation tests. The infiltration tests, if you're going to claim this is going to dissipate into the ground, have to be done at or below the bottom of the proposed Coltex system. And you've got to have, depending on the soils, at least 18 inches of unsaturated soil below the system. So even if you use a 26-inch deep system, you add 18 inches to it, you're down 36 plus 8, you're down to what, 44 inches that you need to restrict layer. Based on the NRCS data, you're about 30 inches down as the best case scenario before you're hitting that hard pan layer. So the Coltex concept here, really, it's not going to function. I have reviewed many plans. I've seen many of these systems fail because they're put on a plan just like this, and they don't work. The idea that, oh, well, we're going to design this when we go to get a building permit. No, in today's world, and I cut my teeth in Reading, which is on the forefront of wetlands protection back in the early 80s. You have to prove that your stormwater design is going to work, whether it's a 2-lot subdivision, where it's a 100-lot, multifamily development. You have to prove that your plan is going to work now, so that this commission has comfort that at least you have a plan that is going to work. Now, obviously, single-family house footprints can change, but you need to know that the concept is going to work. You don't have the evidence here that it's going to work. And again, with the silt soils, yes, it will pond on the surface, but even if the ponding goes away, those soils will be very saturated. I walked the site in Warren. It was a silt soil. It was not a wetland area. And yet in July, we sunk up to our ankles because the soils are very saturated. Silt soils hold the water between the soil particles. So think of a sponge. You step on a sponge, your foot goes in the sponge and the water pops out. That's what happens in silt soil, because the water is held between the soil particles. It's not in the void space. It's actually held by cohesive forces to the soil particles. So it's squishy. That's lack of a better term for it. So even if there's no ponding water here, it does not mean that these soils are not wet below the ground surface. And the shallower the hard pans, the longer they will be wet. So again, you don't have enough evidence, in my professional opinion, to know that the stormwater management system here will work. And hence, if it doesn't work and there's no evidence to support it, then you really don't have any decision but to turn the project down, in my professional opinion. Thank you.
I could just address Jack and Mr. Stahogek's questions that they had for me. They were saying that where does the water go? It's only going to benefit it. It's only going to, even if you make a grade, if you're staying with an umbrella, you're getting the same amount of water as you are there as you are here. But if I may go back to the last meeting, you did mention that if you do raise the pitch, which your proposal was 3 feet, in height, that it's going to, and your exact term used was accelerate the flow of water going down the pitch, but it's not going to create more water. So it's going to accelerate it, but not create it. So the way I'm thinking, I mean, I'm a paramedic. That's my expertise. I'm really good at what I do, but I mean, going back to 6th grade, simple science of osmosis, an area from a higher concentration, a lower concentration, if you're gonna pitch it, you're going to collect it no matter how you do it. So if it's going at a faster grade, so if I take and I go like this, it's gonna go faster as opposed to going this. The fact of the matter is the water is going to go down. So if it's going to collect more and it's already spilling over into mine, because as we were using the term squishy, it is an absolute just swamp because the water is spilling over. If you're raising the grade, it's going to create and increase the amount of spillover, which is then going to make matters worse onto my property. So when you're saying, oh, well, then the water just, soaks up and dissipates. Yeah, eventually within time, if there's not going to be any rain, if there's going to be sun and everything else, the water eventually does have to get soaked up into the ground. That's just natural. Okay, but the point is when it's there, when it's standing, when it's 7¼ inches deep, and you're raising the pitch by 3 feet, and it's going towards my property and Mr. Luca's property, and also on the border of Mr. Philippon's property, well, then that's how we have this concern.
Good.
I just want to address the 18 inches below the high groundwater, that's the separating distance. And for stormwater systems, I don't believe that holds true. So the other thing is on soils, filthy soils, the water molecule is a polar universal solid. One side is positive, one side is negative. Soil particles are negative. The positive side of the water molecule sticks. So water will expand and fill in voids or whatever. Ad infinitum. You add salt of any kind, that sticks the site on that negative soil particle and it stops the water from getting in there. So you add salt and you can de-water farm fields or whatever. We don't know what these details are. So to go into that, all he's saying is if there's a pond here, I'm going and it drains down, it doesn't flow because the berm has been put up. Is that a problem for this property owner or is this problem property owner? If this berm was built with or without a permit and you may or may not go do anything about it, now that it's been brought to your attention, this is not the point of this meeting, but the wetness here is caused by the property owner here. So this property owner is concerned about wet area here. It's not on his lot. This property owner is concerned about wet area over here. It's not on his lot.
Anybody have any other comments or questions or thoughts? I have a question for you, Jim. I don't want to put you on the spot, but are we going to get any more information by going another month to?
You certainly have time to extend the public hearing if the applicant grants permission to do that with the timeframes involved.
Right.
You can extend the public hearing. You can close the hearing. You can make a decision this evening. You can close the hearing, wait till next month to make a decision. But once and if the hearing is closed, obviously.
Right,
you're not
no more discussion, right?
anymore. So if you were thinking of extending the public hearing, if you have any questions of the applicant, now would be the time to do that. If not, we have the other option.
My thing, you two, was there anything in this that you would like to further investigate, possibly look into, or do you think that with all your questions raised by this, you've answered?
I think that we've shown that the pumping the septic out is a benefit. The water system that brings in will add additional fire protection to both neighbors, because they can string hoses from this side, from the hydrant that we're proposing to the other side. So that's another benefit. The curtain drain removes more water than any of the roofs that we're putting in. So that will be a benefit. The slope, there's probably a 1 or 2 foot slope from each of the homes. So the water runs a little faster, then it slows down, and then it can go into the ground. If it's frozen, it doesn't matter. Everything runs off. So I don't think that should be a concern. But I think this curtain drain removes more water than whatever we're doing. We're not adding any water. We're just we're not detaining this water, but these chambers will detain when it's dry. When it's wet, we're showing overflows into this curtain drain. So you're right, they may not work part of the year, but then nothing else is working and it's going to overflow and it goes in here. So the lawn doesn't work. That is, everything runs off. So what we're proposing, I think, more than enough offsets whatever the issues that we're raising, and we've addressed those by putting in the culverts to give it detention during dry weather, and they're tying into, in wet weather, they're tying into their curtain drain. So I think that's what the proposal was. So I would think if I was this homeowner, 30% less water coming at my lot, I would be happy. This lot, he's going to get 10% less water, and he's going to get a buffer of some sort here, an additional buffer here. So I think he should be happy. So
Your calculations to back those 30%, 10% up.
yes, I based it on area. I took the area of the drainage, small drainage area, this side of the road coming across the lot, and which would be caught by this. Yes, depending on the soil, you're right. The amount of groundwater that this thing picks up in tight soil, clay soil, is reduced, but it does pick up because the best evidence is the pond here. It went away by itself. There's a little depression here. It had nowhere to run off. The transpiration and evaporation of the grass is very small at this time of the year, so it went into the ground. So it will absorb, and this thing will absorb, be it, we could argue, 1 foot, 10 feet, this side, or on that side.
Have you gentlemen seen this letter before tonight?
No.
We haven't either, and
Right.
I mean,
Well, that was my question. I mean, you guys must have time to just to look at it and listen to what the gentleman had to say. Would it be wise for you to look at this and come back and
Give him 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Take a 5-minute recess.
yeah, Hank,
We're back. I was just asking Ellen where she wanted to time.
Yeah. go ahead. Well, Yeah.
Interesting observation.
Yep.
There was a swimming pool.
yeah, it was an in-ground pool. Yes, I do remember, oh, yeah, I remember,
Didn't pop out of the ground.
yeah, no, they just,
Still in the ground.
I'm sure he didn't pull it up, I'm sure he just buried it.
If they carry it up, they put a house.
Yeah. Yeah, what's,
Well, that's a significant finding.
Jack, you guys want, we can go for recess, or do you
I'd
want,
like to then consider this report. That's it for-
do you want to wait, you want to extend the public hearing another
Continue the
month?
public hearing.
Yes.
And you're granting the extension of time.
Right, so that's what we're asking, does your client approved to extend the public hearing.
That's what you think. I said, Dr. Booker, there's a question that's been raised. I'd rather have all the questions addressed. So I think it would make your lives easier.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
And it ought to be considered
Right.
thoroughly, that's all.
And I think Jack, doing the basement, changing the plans, I think would be, getting rid of the grades. Little things like that. So if there's, go ahead.
One more thing, sir, since a significant finding like that was brought up, I think that should definitely investigate. Especially where on that property that is, because that's the area.
I don't know if that would make any difference. I really don't know. I'm not, but
I mean, it's just my impression. I don't have the professional background of any of these people that have spoken, but it just doesn't seem like this is going to make things worse. You guys have a problem now. We understand that. There's standing water already. And again, they need to consider the points that this gentleman has raised. And I feel like I need more feedback on that stuff. But just my impression right now, and like the buried swimming pool is there now. It's got nothing to do with this proposed development. And I mean, how can a curtain drain hurt things? How can these retention basins make things worse than they already are? That I'm just thinking out loud. That's kind of where I am now. I want to continue to collect information.
I don't disagree. I'm saying if you raise a slope, you create a slope, even if you put in the drain system, in the terms of this stuff, okay, this exact words will accelerate the amount of flow.
Not the amount, just the speed. So you get the same amount, and then after a while, the dissipation goes back to status quo.
all right, well, I think we've all agreed that we're going to continue the public hearing. If that's okay with the client, okay. All right, so right now, if there's no other questions from the commission.
One more. Mr. You said it was gonna get more water. Could you elaborate on where what water was gonna come from?
Oh, simply Steve Trench's record, simply when we put in a paved driveway, we put in a roof, we have no infiltration. The soils will infiltrate some degree of water. I mean, all soils do, even a clay will. But impervious surfaces simply do not.
All right, so you're just saying.
It's that, and again, I go back to, there's no evidence that have been submitted to know these Caltech systems work. I have investigated probably half a dozen similar systems on projects where they were put on plans just like this. They're just shown on the plan. They failed. They caused either flooding for the homeowner they had them, or they caused flooding downstream because the ground couldn't absorb the water. You need to know that it works. You need to have a stormwater report. You need to have the watershed maps, as I outlined in my letter. There's a lot of missing information under our requirements as an engineer under meeting standard of care. We have to provide information to give a comfort level to your commission, and the information's not there. That's why I've seen these systems fail. And we also get these short duration, more intense rainfalls. You get 3 inches in 2 hours. And without modeling these systems to know whether they can handle it, that water's got to go somewhere, and it's going to go downstream. That's simply what it does. Water goes from high energy to low energy, basically uphill to downhill, and it ponds. And all those owners are downhill. So we got to know that it's going to work. And right now, there's no evidence to support that it will.
Anything else? If not, I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing until extend it to continue the hearing, public hearing until I had it here, April 4th.
I make a motion.
No.
Yeah, first Tuesday.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
yeah. Make a motion to extend the public hearing until April 4th meeting.
Yeah, make a motion to extend 22 days.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See everyone next month. Thank you, everyone.
We're gonna take them for our annual meeting. 6 o'clock. Usually the date is never left over except for this one.
George, all this time. We had a better presentation.
I tell you, why don't you bring one back for me?
Taking me with me.
All right, now we have a regular meeting on the first, the only one, thank God. Application 23-02W, proposal by Pistol Brook Holding LLC to fill a regulated area on Lot 9, Block 72 at 1709 Kenston Road. Up for the applicant.
1709 Kensington Road is essentially Sunny Border Farm, 9-acre parcel. We're proposing 4 lot. Well, we're not proposing. We're in the process of starting a proposal for a 4 lot subdivision for the town. This is basically the first step. The application we submitted before you is to fill a man-made irrigation pond that was constructed as a use of right under the agricultural purposes of the property. Like I said, it's a nursery. Primary purpose is there's really no value it adds. We submitted. We also had the pond investigated by REMA. We have George Logan here who can add color to or backstory on the irrigation pond itself. From what I understand, the commission, I believe, is going to choose to go to a public hearing. We can, we can get into more detail today, or if you like.
The only, not to interrupt you, but the only I think we go to a public hearing is just where it is, what you're doing. I think it'd be benefit to the commission to do that. Now, if you want to explain in small detail.
Okay, so in the 1970s, there was no pond there. I showed you the picture for it. Then the pond appeared. Obviously, there was a nursery, needed water. And the thing that I found, and I just only showed one picture, but all the pictures that I saw when the nursery was in operation, and especially in the right time of the year, in the spring, some of these pictures, you'd see the water going, you see all these beds wet, and all the water going back to the pond. So that, because it's in a low spot, it was the perfect thing. Anything that would run off, you could reuse because, you could just pump it back up. But as you know, when that happens, all the excess nutrients get in there. Some of these sulfines get in there, and you've seen the picture here that shows it all muddied up like chocolate. So my guess is that that's the main reason for it. It was dug deep enough so that it probably intercepted the water, but the soils out there probably conducive for it's sealed up after time. And so it has really limited nutrient value because of what it is and what is surrounded. It has no connection with it. So my view was in getting the health and safety into the equation too, is that it would be okay. So
Now, is the regulation, if it was man-made, it's not functioning in any way, they can't fill it? Is that was
it's up to you folks. There's
okay? There's no regulation for it. Okay.
If you talk to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they'd say, "Was there a wetland there before?" No, we're not interested. That's what they all.
So, but this whole bit about soil types defining a wetland, would this be defined under those criteria?
It's mainly defined as a water course because you can put a line along it. It's a water body, so it has an edge to it. And then just past the edge of the water, depending on the time of the year, I suppose, there might be a wetland fringe that's based on soils, and the soils are eggplants, which means that disturbed, man-made wetland soils. So they're still poorly drained, So you have a pond and then you have a fringe around it. And then you can see the capital goes into the pond.
So in your estimation, before it was deepened, it wasn't a wetland.
It wasn't.
And that is the only
And,
part in the whole site, right?
and interestingly enough, I mean, it's small, so maybe it was missed, but I doubt it, because I looked at all the aerial photographs going out all the way back to. I have the original Soil Conservation Service maps in paper that I guard them like nothing. Doesn't show anything. There's no wetland soils anymore.
Gotcha.
So in the whole, that whole 9 acres, there's no wetlands at all other than that.
Actually, we went to the far corner just to be sure.
Lowest fund.
Yeah, where's that on the map?
This is Orchard, this is
Yep.
Kensington, sorry for the small map.
No, it's okay.
This is the irrigation pond we're discussing. So this is the lowest part there. So essentially, this irrigation pond collects, everything from everything, these grades from the western side, a little bit from the southern side here, and from this northern side here. Everything else shifts in this direction and this tails off this way.
And I showed the picture of the runoff from the irrigations.
And then this little fish.
Yeah.
And you look at some other pictures, you see it coming from the south also.
Now, there's a permanent structure. Does that have water and sewer ready to it, or?
No, the proposal of these were all private utilities.
Okay. I mean, this is pretty.
I worked there.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, you can't take an action this evening.
Right, we gotta wait 30 days
The only
anyway.
thought for public interest, perhaps, the hearing is held.
Yeah,
As I said, neighbors have voiced concern in the past, not necessarily from a wetland standpoint, but just with the condition of the parcel
Right.
once it was
right.
essentially abandoned from the agricultural use. It's not gonna hurt, and as long as the.
We take no exception to it.
Yeah, and what I've seen, I mean, it's for 9 acres, you only have 4 house lots. So they're not gonna be tiny houses, they're not gonna be tiny houses.
So let's just look at the scenario. Public hearing is held. Commission closes the hearing, they take an action. Once that action is taken, then action's taken in this direction, subdivision proceeds.
Right.
And
Right,
it's not gonna come back to you.
right. So, yeah, once we make an action in the next meeting, you can go to your next step.
Exactly. I mean, that's the biggest, that's why we're making this the first step. We might adjust some lot lines. That's why what we're showing here is pretty much schematic. They're not going to change much. We anticipate even where it is.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't change it much, but it's still nothing to prove.
And the layout would have to conform to the current zoning regulations for that zone, which is what our 86.
2 acre.
2 acre lots, yeah. And one of them, was it 5 acres or there's one on the top?
One on top.
Yeah,
And which else we can do so.
yeah,
First thing on that lot is getting a driveway in there.
yeah. Well, I can imagine, yeah. I drive by there quite a bit and, yeah.
That's steep.
Yeah, it is.
All right, well, any other questions for
Comes down this way.
these guys?
Yeah, I think we drive something where we're doing to get it in there, to get the grade. Yeah,
Yeah, like a turn. Yeah. Long drive.
I didn't like walking up looking for the pins.
I can imagine.
It was pretty interesting. He had some, quite an interesting horticultural collection there, and some of it's still there.
Well, he was,
You should have been there right now.
oh,
That's when I worked here, and I was like, oh.
Pierre had quite a business
It
there.
was, he says, look at this, and I'm taking pictures of plants. It was-
I remember going by there and they would pull out of there, the entrance over here, you pull out.
Drop a.
Yeah.
And my son lives over in, around the corner here, and I'd come down the road and find him in the road. Pick up the plants, put it in my car.
My son worked there one summer and,
5
It was-
rider rental trucks there.
Yeah.
They load up every
Oh, yeah.
morning and everyone would go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you see those in the picture.
Yeah.
The aerial photographs.
One of the last jobs they did was the Javits Center in New York. They did all the plantings for the roof.
Yeah, roof.
Yeah, Mark was
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
It was.
Pierre did a good job with that. But if no other questions or comments, have a motion to entertain a public hearing on application 23-02W.
Make a motion We have a public hearing application 23-02W.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Can you guys work?
Yeah, don't show up at 7. Yeah, have a night.
No, I think we come to the beginning. Sure.
Yeah, we have the other one, though.
Denardi.
Denardi.
Yeah. Well, you could,
New one
yeah.
coming in?
And we have another one that says postponed.
Or the one that.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 Rod Road.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow, it might really be a lot of.
You know, just, it's gonna be.
About an hour, right, George?
We probably stopped the people from coming in. They were for that. They thought they
Yeah,
were
we
gonna be here
might want
tonight.
to go to second, so.
Yeah, really.
Any
Any other business?
other business,
I
couple
thought-
of pieces of correspondence, another, one of the, pond treatment
Yeah.
applications for Timberland Pond.
Yep.
We have Brown's Department submitted one.
Yep.
That's gonna take place this spring. Piece of correspondence from the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District
Yeah.
regarding their plant sale, if anyone's interested,
Yeah.
you know, what plants there, I don't know, 20 years.
Really?
Arborvitae.
Yep.
They're huge. I think we made a copy of the conservation pond, maybe not.
No, I didn't get that one, no.
We'll make a copy for the next week. It's a quarterly publication. And I think that is it. Just a couple of pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I had in my.
Yeah.
What did it said the pond, are you doing all the ponds or just one?
The irrigation pond, I believe.
Which one?
I couldn't tell you what
Oh,
hole it's near,
yeah.
but it's on the west, it's on the east side
Okay,
of the
okay, I know which one it is then. Yeah,
Yeah, that's part 3 that you hit over.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's that.
yeah,
Without the series.
yeah, right,
Kinda
yeah,
connect.
to connect, yeah. Other than that, nothing else? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second? All in favor? Are we off? I know.
They go by their